Welcome to Toffee TV, day 22 of no manager.
That was very therapeutic.
I didn't know how to come into it, like excitement or with fear, trepidation, or...
Wait till tomorrow when you switch on and he's like Bob Ross and he's just I'm gonna paint this little picture for you guys.
To day 23.
Who's going to be the manager? Let's wait and see. As I draw this little, he needs a little
Can
frame.
Can you tell you?
I mean, let's not go there. It's not that fella.
No, fair enough. Joined by Cameron. Hey, yeah, to have a chat. Cam, I mean, over 3 weeks now since Carlo Ancelotti decided that Formby wasn't as nice as what he first thought and he wanted to get back to Madrid. It doesn't seem that Everton are right now about to announce the manager. I think within probably by the end of the week, I think they will have announced it or certainly edging towards that. But what are your feelings about it?
Yeah, it's getting a bit tedious now, isn't it? Getting a bit boring, just the wait, and again we're hearing different bits of information from various different sources over the last sort of week or so. It was Nuno a couple of weeks ago, then it was Rafa, then TalkSport come out and said Rafa was not even in the race anymore. Then, a lot of other journalists jumped on and said, hang on, no, that's wrong. So again, no communication at all from the club in the 3 weeks. So we don't really know where we're at. We know the Liverpool Echo had an article at the end of last week, didn't they, saying that Everton expect to make an appointment next week, meaning this week. Obviously, we're at Wednesday today, so only a couple of days left. But it's just getting a little bit tedious for me now. I'm getting a little bit bored of it, bored of the different rumours every now and then. Is it going to be this manager? No, it might be this manager. There's been multiple rounds of talks with Rafa Benitez. There's still other names in the frame. It's just... I'm at a point now where I'm just like, get somebody in, announce them, and let's just look forward and look towards bringing in players, because we still drastically need to improve this squad. This squad still isn't anywhere near good enough to achieve anything next season. So I know a lot, it might be a certain name that not a lot of fans want, but I'm at the stage now where I'm just like, whoever it is, if they've sold on Rafa Benitez, get it done and just front it, face it, and go, no, he's the right man for the job. This is who we've chosen. This is the man. Now we move forward, because I think it seems like there's a little bit of, we think this man's the right man for the job, but we're not 100% yet. And, like you said, 22 days now, nearing on, in a week, it'll be a month since Ancelotti's left, and we're still none the wiser. I mean, the club might be a lot further down the process than they were 3 weeks ago, but to us as fans, we're still talking about rumours that might have some substance, mightn't have some substance. So, yeah, just a bit frustrating, isn't it now? And for me, a bit tedious at the moment.
I mean, just what Cam was saying there, if they have decided on Rafa Benitez, should they just get it done and dusted and announce?
I mean, but the thing about it is that I have got a feeling that that's what they're doing, in terms of, like, in the last few days, what's been interesting is there was up to probably not like yesterday, the day before, there was still, there's other names in the hat, there's this, there's that. At the moment, there only seems to be one name in the hat, and that's gone quiet. And that seems to me like that's the time. That's almost like that is the time where people will start accepting it, when they stop hearing other names. Okay. And therefore, when it is announced, people who have already gone through that period, because it's like, I've seen it myself in WhatsApp groups and stuff where people still feel like, oh yeah, but Tingo got mentioned 5, and what if we're still in for Gallardo and all this kind of thing, and it's like. And all the, all the different names, Galtier and all that kind of thing. And it's like, there'll be a period just quiet now, I think, before, if they announce it, but before they announce it, where it's going to be, everyone's going to, the acceptance stage. So when it happens, you go, yeah, well, we were thinking that. Because that's what Everton and other football clubs tend to do now. They tend to, when there's bad news or perceived bad news, they let all the hype build up, and then they just have that little bit of time where you, as a fan, can just accept it and go through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
And it's whether you're selling a player or whether you bring, whatever it is. And Everton must be great at breaking bad news. They must have mastered that. And I think that's maybe where we are right now, in that period where fans are going to just have to accept it. Because if you do something and you do it quick and it's like a shock, that makes it worse for people, I think. When it's like, if something happens quick, your anger, it's like a flash.
Yeah. But isn't there a danger that, and I know what Cam's saying, there's no communication and I think the communication should have really come at the start and said, this is what we're doing. I think once they're in the process, I think it's difficult to update without giving stuff, not giving stuff away, but I think it's difficult to update without going, we're after this manager, and I don't think they're ever going to do that. But isn't there a danger that while it's hanging in the air, anger's building? So people are getting more wound up.
No, because that's not human nature. That's not human nature. Human nature is acceptance. You will always accept something, always, if you are left with your own thoughts. Anger builds up when something's quick. I think...
So do you think we've had the worst of the anger then? In a way?
No, because of course, when it's announced, some people will be angry about it, of course. But I think most people... What you've done is you've put Benitez's name out there. And at first, it's like, that's terrible. But how many times have we sat... and something's happened, and when you first hear it, I'll give you a boss example, Hummel.
Yeah.
Right, okay, slightly different, but when Hummel was announced, we were sat over there and we were like, what, Hummel, cheap, and then the more you start thinking about it, and as time passes, you start going, actually, that wouldn't be a bad thing, that actually makes sense, and a brand which looks after Everton, and we'll have all our own gear, and blah, blah, blah.
Biggest brand.
And you start thinking about it more, and I think the same will... Everton will be hoping, and I don't know whether they do this or not, but I do think there's that idea of when you hear something straight off, no, I'm not having that. But the more you start thinking about it, you start accepting it in your own head and going, maybe that might be the worst idea, or yeah, I could put up with that or whatever. And I think maybe that's where we are right now, just in that
calm before the storm, and then the calm again. Because I think that, like Cam's just said there, that the biggest thing in all of this is that we have to start looking at the playing staff. Because, listen, Rafa Benitez, if it's Rafa Benitez, or if it's Nuno, Spirito Santo, or if it's Eddie Howe, or all of the other names that are being tossed about, whoever's in that dugout, ultimately it's what matters on that pitch when we're all there, doesn't it? So we have got to, you just hit the nail on the head, this squad at the moment, what will be different next season? There's at this moment in time, there's no other players coming. No new players have come in as yet. And I know that this is not back for pre-season yet and all that, but some teams have got players in. Not many. But we do have to get on with that process of bringing in players, don't we? To try to freshen this squad up. So, getting it done and dusted, if that's the right word, it's got to be paramount, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it's got to. But sure, in a way, if they're doing the search well and they're doing it in the right way and they're going through the process, then taking the time isn't the worst thing in the world. But as I said before, it always felt chaotic. The names that have been bandied about have just been mad because they're from one extreme to another. But as we spoke about yesterday, if you want to carry on what Carlo Ancelotti has been doing, Rafa Benitez isn't the worst name in the world. If you want to change and start completely fresh, then you do bring Graham Potter in, or you do bring someone of that ilk in. But you are committing to start again.
Yeah.
But then you have to say to that person, well, actually, financially, we haven't got the money to evolve that quickly. So you're going to have to work with these kind of players. Who do you want if you have to work with these kind of players? Because I don't really see loads of signings coming in now. Maybe three at a push. You'd be looking for an experienced
without
hand.
selling.
Yeah, without selling. Yeah.
I think if they sell someone, then they can reinvest it. I mean, just on Rafa Benitez camp, because me and Ped have made our thoughts quite clear on whether we think it's a great appointment or it isn't. But Rafa Benitez, for you, I know a lot of people are against it, and I wouldn't say rightly so, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. Doesn't stick out as like a manager who Everton should really be going for, but it seems like he is. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on Rafa Benitez for Everton?
I'm the same. I'm not a massive fan of it, to be honest with you. Again, I'm looking at sort of his style of football, his success in recent years. I know he was a very successful manager 10, 15 years ago, but he hasn't been that for a long time. His last job in England was Newcastle, to which he done well in, and I'm sure a lot of Newcastle fans will praise him and say he was absolutely brilliant. But where Newcastle were and where Everton want to be, certainly where we should want to be for the future, isn't the same. So I don't think you can compare them. I'm not too deep on the Liverpool stuff personally in regards to who he's managed before and what he said, because I understand if he's the right man for the job, then you can look past that. But I also get that the Liverpool connection is a massive target on his back already
hang on,
before he comes in.
For someone of your age, does that, does that really, you just said yourself, it doesn't really matter to you, but does that come into even in the thinking of a manager who managed Liverpool when you were very young and who said those things when you were very, very young? Does that really come into play of that?
It does. The thing, what he said is a bit different, because there's other managers that have managed Liverpool, i.e. Brendan Rodgers, who we've spoke about over the last week, who I'd have tomorrow if he said I want to come to Everton. Didn't say nothing disrespectful about Everton, but he managed them and he's a success at the moment. So the things he said do come into play, and I think for me they come into play more so as the fact that he's coming in with a massive target on his back, and fans have already got a rod to beat him with already. And I said it before, and people go, "Oh no, it's not the case." But I honestly think, imagine we're in this situation. We're in April, May sort of time, or April, March time. We haven't won a game for 7 games. We've lost 4, drawn 3 on the bounce. We go into the Anfield derby with 2-0 down and they're singing his name and they've got banners in the Kop. Are you really telling me that Evertonians are going to go, no, this is the process, we'll keep to this, everything's working? No, people will just go, that's it. Once we become a laughing stock, that's it. I'm not dealing with that anymore.
But you're relying on the idea that that's a negative connotation.
Well, that's if it goes wrong, yeah.
That's a negative connotation.
If it goes very right, then obviously, listen, if he comes in and we finish in Europe and we win a trophy, then it's different, isn't it? A lot of people will go, actually, do you know what? Maybe he is the right man for the job, and ultimately we don't know how successful he's going to be until he comes in and does it or doesn't do it.
I just find it, and again, I'm not having a go at anyone, and it's just an interesting way that we do things in this country. It's like, if you go to a country like Italy, they're constantly swapping managers. Managers will manage players will move around. There doesn't seem to be, and I don't know how much, but there just doesn't seem to be this hangover. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I just find it very interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is, and going back to what your point was there about similar to Carlo, and what I mean by that is in terms of maybe style or
CV as well. It's the best CV on the list, isn't he?
But working with things is that if Everton are having FFP, it's just something you said before about of trying to evolve the club. If Everton are having FFP issues, which they are, and we know that, and until there's pressure put on the Premier League to change those rules, right? Then you can. I wonder if it is easy to understand why they're going for Benitez then, because if you look and go, well, we've got a set of players and we're trying to do it, we're trying to turn that over slowly, because we can't do it fast, because unless we sell someone, we can't really bring in half a dozen new players, big money. You've managed the squad before and got the most out of a squad.
Yeah.
Is it the path to least resistance almost, with here's a collection of players. We want to turn this squad over in the next 2 or 3 years to younger and faster and all that. And while we're doing it, so that when we get to the stadium, our balance sheet is almost level, so that we can kick on again. And it's not, we've said it before, it doesn't mean once we walk through Bramley Moor, the doors there, all of a sudden we're Man City and we can just buy also, or whoever, and spend hundreds of millions. But if the balance sheet's a lot cleaner, you can go on another level, and can't you? Do you know what I mean? And I guess he has worked. He's had to work with what he's got at some clubs.
Maybe it's an indication of bigger problems at the football club. Maybe it's an indication that money won't be flowing. I mean, we spent 60 million last summer. We've just come off the back of a season of no fans, more losses. There was big losses the year before. There'll be big losses this year because football's gone on.
Everyone's made the losses.
And everyone will have made losses. And maybe it's just an indication of where we are, that you can't go and to the brightest and best managers in Europe and offer them everything. Because if you say, the first thing a manager wants, I think personally, is salaries guaranteed. It's guaranteed, you know,
in the Premier League.
In the Premier League, whether it's any manager that's on that list is going to make good money out of Everton.
Yeah.
Not Carlo money, but good money, right? So that he doesn't have to worry about that. So his first question will be, how much money do I have to spend? And if Everton can't answer that without saying, well, actually, you're going to have to sell, maybe, if you can't get rid of Keane, you might have to sell one of the jewels of the squad. I'm just telling you right now, if you really want to push this on and do what you want to do, you might have to sell a Richarlison, you might have to sell a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you might have to sell a Luka Dean. That's reality. And if Everton are a bit worried about doing that, because they know what our fans are like, then going to someone like Rafa Benitez, whether you like it or not, might be the safest thing to do. And I've mentioned this before, I'm with the stadium, but it might be the safest thing to do just in financial terms. And I think that's worrying. That's worrying. As I said, if you went to Graham Potter and do something with that squad, go get me some players.
Yeah.
Get me some players. Brighton, I'm a couple of players away from taking them to the next stage, mid-table, competing for the outside chance of European places. And then that'll knock me on to the next level, whichever, whether that be a new club or whatever. You might look at Everton and go, Jesus Christ, I've got a lot of work to do there to instill the way I want to do things. And then if you're him and you go, it's going to take me longer than 18 months, and you don't get longer than 18 months at Everton, then why would I going to bother?
Yeah.
Whereas Rafa Benitez, whether people like it or not, sitting on the whittle, twiddling his thumbs, waiting for a job. As long as he gets a fast tag for the tunnel, he's coming.
That's it.
And that to me is as I said, is a worrying thing of what the club is.
But where the club is.
No, it is where it is.
It is where it is, isn't it? And until the rules change, what can we do? We've had our owners sat on a big fat wedge going, we want to spend it, and we can't. We're not allowed to spend the money. And that's the frustrating thing, I think. That if we were allowed to spend that money, it would be easier to turn this squad over.
Yeah, it would be, but then you look at how much money we've spent over the years and wasted under the Koeman era and Walsh and, 300, 400 million on players that were just nowhere near good enough and didn't suit Everton. So we are sort of sitting here now that the rules have caught up with us, or now they've been put in place, and we're like, we've got the money there still, but we now can't spend it. But we had a big chance with the money to spend it when Macheri first come in, and we wasted a lot of it on bang average players that ultimately didn't become a success, and most of them have now left the club. If it is Benitez, I would like the club to sit down, whether it be Benitez and Brands on his own, them as a collective, and just say this is what the plan is for the future. This is where we want to be. Because if it is a short-term appointment as the state, right, just stabilise us until we get into the stadium, and then we'll look from further there.
And that's not a short-term appointment.
Well,
3 years for Everton is not a short-term appointment.
One of the longest managers.
But if it's we believe he's going to come in and he's going to be able to build a squad, because effectively what we needed is a manager to come in and build a squad that is capable of challenging for the European places, it's capable of doing what Leicester are doing, capable of breaching that top 6, top 4, whatever you want to call it. So is that still the plan? Are we all on the same page here? The club might sit down and go, hang on, no, forget that. Let's just become stabilised. Let's just get a way of playing, an identity, bring in players that can solidify the squad and get us in a solid position. Because at the moment we don't know what the plan is. We don't know where we're going, where the club want to go, where they see us going. Like I said it before, we know where we are, we know where we want to be, but we haven't got a clue how to get there. We don't know the steps, we don't know the road. It's just like, well, if we close our eyes, then we might just open them and we'll be there automatically. And that's not how football works. So if it is Benitez, and if it's anyone, I'd like it to do whoever comes in, but if it is Benitez, I think it would do the club well to sit down, either with Benitez and Brands or just Brands, and go, look, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, this is why we've brought in Rafa Benitez, because we're doing this and that. Because it could be looked at in multiple different ways, couldn't it, the appointment? And we'll wait and see, but as of now, Could be Mr. Bean, couldn't it, really? Who knows?
PR will be important, though, won't it, with Benitez?
They've got to smash it. They've got
It's got to be explained why they've chosen him. I think Cameron's right in a way there. Reiterate what the plan is. Yeah. Reiterate, we we're trying to build something that's going to mean Everton are back up. It's all very well saying something, but if it's not actually being adhered to, you're telling people you want to be a Champions League club or you want to be fighting for the Champions League and trying to win trophies, and yet everything you're doing doesn't actually suggest that.
Yeah.
That's causing because what you're doing is you're giving fans this dream, but there's no way of actually getting it. Yeah. You're giving them a ceiling in between.
So then, therefore, it casts a doubt on everything that these people do then, doesn't it? It casts a doubt on everything, a shadow over everything. People start doubting everything. But we said yesterday, Machiri has put things in place. He has pulled things out the ground. Hopefully we'll be pulling something out the ground very soon. But there's tangible evidence that the club's going in that right direction. But the place where it really matters is on the pitch. And so far it's been a chaotic mess.
Yeah.
Because every turn he's made, he's got it. They've got it wrong. Yeah. I'll say they because it is they. Yeah. They've got it wrong, and it keeps on. It just keeps on sort of dividing into two every time. It's like a problem creates another problem, that creates another problem, that creates another problem, and it's just you're branching off or further away from where you started from. You know, you take one wrong turn and then another wrong turn, and before you know it, you're miles away from the path you need to be on. Yeah. And it's how you've got to start making the right decisions to get back, and they might think this is the right decision. Fans don't. But then fans don't have all the evidence. They don't have everything in front of them. No. They don't know the ins and outs of the money Everton are hemorrhaging, or the money they're going to need for the stadium, or the money or how the balance sheet looks to get the money needed to build the stadium, or you know, these are the things that we just don't know.
Well, Everton come out, didn't he, in an AGM either last year or the year before, and said that by the time we get into Bramley Moore, we want to be challenging for at the top end of the table. We want to be winning league title, challenging the Champions League. So is that still the plan? They might come out now and go, yeah, that was the plan when we had Carlo Ancelotti, who we thought was going to be here for years, and he's this, you know, manager who's won all of this, and he was ready to build a squad. He's got off now, which we weren't prepared for. So things might have changed a little bit.
But do you think, though, that Everton would change that way, though? If you want to win, stuff and be at the top.
You'd like to hope not.
You want to win, stuff and be at the top, don't you? You might have different ideas on how you actually get there. Their ideas how they think they can achieve it might be different to what me and you and Ped think. But I don't think if you're building a new stadium and things like that, I think the ambition is there. I think my worry is they haven't quite got the roadmap right, and that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Well, that's it. Well, we all want Everton to win titles. We all want Everton to be Manchester City, winning the league, getting in Champions League finals. But the reason I'm not in a position of power at Everton is because I wouldn't know how to get Everton to there. I want them to be there, and I want to be watching Everton in Europe and winning league titles. And when, like City now, when City win a cup, it's like, yeah, we won a cup.
It takes a lot, though.
Last year. But I'm not there. There's people at the club that need to know how to get there, or should know how to get there.
The thing about it is, though, it's, if you look at the top four, certainly from last season or the season before, it takes a hell of a lot of money to get into that top four, like a hell of a lot. Like you only have to. People look at Chelsea winning the Champions League.
They spent 300 million.
You remember how much money they spent in the summer?
The previous
you know, and they need more. Really, they need more now to push on. They need a top striker if they want to push on, which is going to be another 50 to 100, probably closer to 100.
Yeah,
you know, that's just one player. You've got to be able to see, not even through FFP. You've got to be able to justify that money and say it's. You're spending that money, and it's going into a squad that isn't on quicksand the way our squad is. There's got to be a real, you know, to spend that kind of money, you've got to have proof that you're going in the right direction. Yeah. Liverpool have done it slightly different. It's led them to a Champions League and a league, but they've got that completely boxed off, top to bottom. Man City just spend money like it's going out of fashion. And Man United can spend money because they're such they are top 3 clubs in the world, if not the biggest club in the world. And they do it in spite of having a manager who's got no real experience. So it's, it's like the Villa situation years ago when they pulled all the money out. When the American pulled all the money out, because he just couldn't see. He just couldn't see how he could put any more money in and it get him any further. And it feels like a little bit like that at the moment, but obviously FFP. And it feels like just pulling back a little bit, getting the stadium done, and then maybe then you can just. But that gives you that actually gives you the foundations then to move forward. There's no foundations. We are very much the last.
For me, we're still going to have to spend money though every year.
Of course we are.
Because otherwise we'll be going into Bramley Moore as a mid-table side.
You can't justify not spending money because of the money you're given by the Premier League and because how much it is to be in the Premier League and just stay in the Premier League. You have to spend that money anyway because you have to, even if it's natural wastage.
You see, Leicester have done it slightly differently as well, though. They've built properly, haven't they? But they built from almost a position where there was no expectation. But they have though.
No, I was just about to say, isn't it incredible though that clubs that get relegated seem to be able to do things much better. They're like Leeds, Villa, and
forces you to.
Brentford, look at Brentford's recruitment. Absolutely.
But this is what I'm saying. I'm not a believer in the top 6 as a closed shop and all of that. I just don't believe it. And we've had so much evidence in the last few years that it's nonsense anyway. The top 6 of who they call the big 6. Actually haven't been the big 6 in 10 years. It might be like half the time it's been them and other times Leicester have been in there, West Ham are in there and Leicester in it last season. So you can get into it, but you have to be smarter. I don't think Everton can get into it by just continually throwing money and hoping that you can get another James Rodriguez and that'll get you there. The only way I think Everton can do it is by thinking about what they actually need. So if you've got a right winger who is really doing well and his numbers are all good, but he's not a name, and you've got Wilf Zaha, go for the young one here who's going to forget, even though Zaha's really good, he's 28 and he's on big money, go for this one that it makes sense to, and do it that way. And by putting the right pieces in place, you can elevate your way through, because there will still be teams who will still go, I want the shiny thing. And United have been evidence of that. United have bought the shiny things many times since Ferguson left, and it hasn't worked. Whereas if they would have actually just boxed clever, they might have got to where they wanted to be in a better way, rather than just going.
They did that. Funny thing about that is though, they did that, didn't they? They went and got Mourinho to basically put them back in the top 4, got them second. Okay, and then
won a trophy,
and that was what they did to get because then they finished 6th, didn't they? And then he finished second, and it got them back in amongst them. It's just so difficult for a club like Everton at the moment because all those teams are just flying, and what you've got to do is, you said that if you make a short-term decision, like bringing someone like James Rodriguez in, you have to back that up with like a long-term plan of how to capture the market you've just exploited by getting James Rodriguez in. And that's what Everton seems to be really, really bad at. And I've done for years, when we had America boxed off with the players, we should have just stuck around and gone there every single year and capitalised on that and brought in a few lesser-known American players just to keep that ticking over. Keep the interest going. And they didn't, and they let that go away. And probably something that'll happen in Colombia as well. If James Rodriguez leaves, all that'll drift away, even though that was what the plan was, to build off the back of that and open an office in America and playing in the Florida Cup with them and all this kind of thing. It'll just evaporate because Everton just don't know how to capitalise on it. Because if you're not winning trophies, it's very hard to capitalise on it because people just move on to the next thing. Everton just have to be smarter. But I can't believe a club with this much money is so dumb. I really can't. I really can't. I've been saying
no long-term plan.
I've been saying it for 10 years, though. I've been saying it for 10 years on different various things I've done, and the answers are still not getting answered. It baffles me. It baffles me.
Some of the comments, Matthew Carrigan says Rafa can jog on. Jeffrey Martin says Roy Hodgson in the running, Fair enough.
Thought he was going to say Roy Hodgson being linked today.
Oh God, don't
about to
don't say that. Do not say that. Neil Shanahan says Nuno or Potter ahead of this, bringing in more instability. JC says Marcel, time to go. Okay. JC also says if we get Rafa the derby game against Liverpool, will be fun to watch. You say fun?
Unbeaten in the derby last season.
Unbeaten in a derby since no fans were there.
Yeah.
3 derbies.
Keep it going.
That's it.
Announce Harry Potter, says Ridwan Harris. Couple of reds in there. Just talking about Benitez, which is fine. Talking about players like Alonso and Mascherano and people like that who Benitez signed. Pepe Reina, Fernando Torres. Yeah. And the young says, our guys hopefully finish top 6 if we can. If not a new manager again. We definitely need new players though. Yeah, definitely. Liam Floyd says, just because I won't back the manager doesn't mean I stop loving Everton. And supporting them, I'll always support Everton. They're my life. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? If you don't want Rafa Benitez to be Everton's manager, but Everton sign him, you're still going to go, well, I think so. Most people are still going to go to the match, aren't they? And we said before, it's about the people on the pitch, isn't it? If you can't love your manager, then blare him out.
Yeah.
Just think about what's ahead of you on the pitch, because it's Everton. You support Everton, you don't support a manager, do you?
Yeah. All the players.
That's the thing about it, isn't it? Managers come and go. We've proved that. We're about to have our 6th manager or something in 5 years. So
I can't remember some of the managers we've had.
We know that. We know that managers come and go. You know, Koeman standing on the touchline seems light years away now, doesn't it? The people we've had since then. David Moyes standing on the touchline seems like about 4 lifetimes ago. And yet we had 3 managers in 16 years at one stage. But when we sacked Martinez, we'd only had 3 managers in 16 years. So we have to get a little bit of stability back. If it's Rafa Benitez, then
can't do anything about it.
No, but the club have to come out and explain why it's Rafa Benitez then.
I think that the thing is as well with him is that all of the expectation is for him to fail, for him to not get anything out the squad, play bad football, be sacked by December, be sacked by
Starting
November.
from a low bar.
Yeah, the bar is very, very, very low. So if he comes in as actually a success, it'll probably still take people time to go, actually, you know what, this is working, we'll get behind this. But the bar is really low now because there's not one Evertonian that is looking at it thinking, he could propel us into the top 6. Everyone's going, oh no, he'd be gone by November. His football's horrible. And it isn't great, and it is defensive, and it's a little bit like Ancelotti, and he won't be able to get anything out the players, and who we're going to sign, and this, that, and the other. So the bar very much is here, and if he achieves, imagine he come in and got us top 6 first season, won us a trophy, won us an FA Cup in the first year. But people sit back and go, actually, do you know what? He's had a decent season there, albeit we mightn't like him. But he's had a decent season. He's done well there.
Exactly. So we get to Bramley more.
And it mightn't be that. And this is the thing with new managers coming in, whether it's Nuno, Graham Potter, Galtier, Pep Guardiola, Klopp, Benitez, it could go very well or it could go very poorly. Or we could be mid-table, mediocre, which is where we've been for the last 4, 5, 6 years, which won't be any surprise to any of us. So,
if the bar is that low, and I think expectation will. I mean, players drive expectation though.
Yeah, they do. And the players have let multiple managers down.
If Everton bring 4 or 5 players in this summer because they were able to move a couple out and they're exciting, fast players, people's excitement levels will go up. There's no use having Pep Guardiola with this squad of players. Because you might go, he'll be able to get a bit more out. These players have let 5 managers down, haven't they? Some of them. And so therefore, it's very important having the managers, but having a great manager and only having the same squad of players won't make any difference.
Manager doesn't put the ball in the back of the net.
Exactly. If for you, the fact that the bar might be that low, could he, if it was him, could he use that to his advantage?
Yeah, of course he can. What people have got to do though is, if he is the manager, there's having a low bar, but then there's also wishing someone fails, and I just think that would be really counterproductive. Well, it would be massively counterproductive, let's be honest. So the bar would be low, I imagine. But there's just I suppose there'd be just that general frustration with everyone, wouldn't it, because of what has happened. The manager left us, don't forget, we didn't sack him, the manager, and whether you liked his football or not, the manager left us. Someone's got to come in. It's always going to be lower, always going to be lower than Carlo, no matter who it is. And for some people, listen, the thing about it is though, for some people, names like Graham Potter are like, what?
Yeah, people are
Do you know what I mean? People look like Potter and go, what are you talking about?
I've seen loads of people going, you want Graham Potter, but you don't want Rafa Benitez. The Evertonians going, for me, he's a no-brainer. It's Rafa, that's what they're saying to me. It's a no-brainer. It's Rafa Benitez. Look at his CV. He's won something. Graham Potter's a gamble. But I'm looking at the longer-term thing going, yeah, but if Potter could get it, Graham Potter could come in and be a nightmare for Everton. It could just not work. Like you said, he might need 2 or 3 years to get it right, where we only give people 14 months.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, you're out the door at Everton, rightly or wrongly. Chris Warby says, see if Leicester had the Richie, they'd sell him for 60 to 80 million, reinvest it correctly and buy 2 solid young prospects. And
No, they would.
That's what Everton.
But you've got to. You're absolutely right. But what you've got to do is be ready to do it. Then you can't just sell a player for 60, 80 million and go, what do we do now?
Yeah.
What you've got to do is you've got to have the 2 players lined up and then go, we can get those 2 if we sell him. But Everton are more likely to go 60 to 80 million. Oh, no. The player comes out and goes, I want to go. He goes and then we go, what are we going to do now? Like what we did with Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah.
That's where the club has to change. If you're gonna go down a route of doing that, then you've got to be prepared for that.
And at some stage, isn't that the right route we have to go down anyway?
Everton for too long have been acting like a big club when they're not a big club.
But I mean us as
in the modern era.
I mean us as fans as well though.
No, we've got to prepare for it.
Start to accept that some of these players will come for 3 or 4 years, and if we aren't where we want to be, sell them and let's get the next. Let's reinvest it, because we're not. I don't think you can always just go, we need Farhad, we need more money. Mate. At some stage, the club's got to be self-sufficient to go. We build players. To be honest, that's what sorted them out.
Yeah,
Well, it's that old stepping stone club thing, isn't it? And it used to be, just, you don't want to be a selling club, mate. Selling club, you don't want to be that. In order to infiltrate that top 6, to win titles, like Leicester have done, like Lille have done in France, like Leicester won an FA Cup last season and have challenged for the Champions League 2 seasons on the bounce, albeit fell short, but they've still challenged. Those clubs have been a stepping stone club. They've been a selling club. And in that scenario, Leicester wouldn't need to go and buy 2 young players to replace a Richie, because they'd already have one in. They'd be looking and selling Richie and going, we've already had this lad who's been here a year, he comes in that area, and then we invest this.
But they do look to reinvest.
They do reinvest, but they'd already have a player.
They've done it with Chilwell, didn't they? They had Castagna coming in.
But it's a business model. It's a football model.
Yeah.
You know, we sold Rooney and got 4th.
Yeah.
Can be done. We sold Gary Lineker and won the league. Can be done.
Yeah.
You know, Leicester have currently proven that. A lot of clubs around Europe are proving that. Liverpool sold Coutinho, elevated them to be able to go out and buy the goalie and Van Dijk. Yeah. You know, people forget that. Didn't need him. You know, didn't need him, so they went and bought what they did need, and it worked. You know, it changed it for them.
Ray Critchell says, I'll say it again, give it to Duncan Ferguson. Everton Hippolyte says, it hurts a bit to say this, but we should have gone in for Graham Potter. I mean, Cam, just on the Ferguson one first before we go to Potter. Everton are quite happy that Duncan Ferguson's in the background, I think, because they know that if something goes wrong, he'll take the reins off for them again, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, it's 3 weeks down the line now, and I think if Duncan Ferguson was seriously, not in consideration, but a serious choice for Everton, he'd be the manager by now, and would have already passed that and would be on to talking about players. So I think, especially with the Benitez thing, if it's going to be Benitez, I think part of the way Everton can spin it, and like you just said then, Everton have been useless at PR for years and years and years. There's all these opportunities, the Hammers opportunity, various different managers, and we're all sitting here weeks later going, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they say this? Why didn't they bring this t-shirt out? Why didn't they make that announcement? And they don't do it. Everton really need to smash the PR. If it's going to be Rafa Benitez, they need to try and spin it so people go, actually, do you know what? This isn't that bad, or it's not as bad as we first thought it was. Completely forget his past and where he's been in the past and just make us look at the future and the present. And I think part of the Rafa Benitez thing, if it is Rafa Benitez, could be that Duncan Ferguson is there as number 2 or still very much there. So fans go, well, Dunk's still there. You heard the Nuno stuff about, him wanting to bring in 455,000 backroom staff and Dunk mightn't have a place there. And I don't think Benitez would dare come in and go, no, I don't want Duncan Ferguson, because that would just be another couple of spades worth in his grave that people have already dug for him. So I think Everton are happy for Dunk to be there, like you said, whether it be number 2 or just in the background. For if it does go wrong, it will be very much a Dunk, you come in and sort us out like it was last time.
What do you make of when some people say they want Dunk to go? Not to go, man. It's just like he should be sacked as well. There's a fella that they give a new contract to, and yet he didn't choose. Everton didn't sack the staff. Those staff chose to go, and he was part of that staff. They all went, and he's here. I mean, just from like a personal thing, should he be kicked out on his ear for doing no wrong, for being there ready as like part of the coaching staff? And if the coaching staff up and leave, you know what I mean? I always find that a bit mad. But that Everton
people are mad.
Give him a contract.
This more you find people are mad.
It is mad. Yeah. But Everton Hippolyte saying we should have gone for Graham Potter. I mean, Graham Potter.
Yeah, but as I said before, if you want to move your club forward and you want a youngish manager to come in and take it somewhere, then Graham Potter looks like a really exciting manager for that. He seems to be ticking a lot of boxes, playing decent football. Yeah. They need a goal scorer. I think they know that. If they get a goal scorer, I think they'd be a good side. Have Everton got the tools to allow him to do his job? That's what you got to ask, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. That's the question. I don't know.
Everton Hippolyte says we hit the like button, guys. Nice one, mate. Chris Warby says it's simple. Stop buying players 27 and above. Yeah, agree.
Everton buy, or have bought certainly in the last 2 years or so, we buy players as if we're like one player away from being the champions of the country, or one player away from we'll buy Ames because we're one creative midfielder away from being the best team
now
in the country,
this has to be the time where we start investing in youth and bring kind of the Godfrey model in. That's what has to be. Jake Albert says, hello lads, had a notification off COVID app today saying I've got to isolate for 7 days. It's ruined my plans for my birthday week. Hope there's lots of vids for next week, boys, please. Jake,
that's horrible.
Just get on your PlayStation or whatever. There you go. Let's have a look. Terry Cook says, we always say we want the club to go out and find the next big thing when it comes to players. So why don't fans want us to do it with management, i.e. Gallardo, Potter? We're stable enough to take a chance. Managers like Rafa, Conte, etc. would just be a stopgap, and we will only end up being 1 or 2 years down the line with a half-built squad and 3 or 4 players. 3 or 4 managers, players, and no particular style of identity. If there is no clear choice, give it to Dunk till a suitable candidate can be appointed. I think we've spoke about that.
Most fans do want us to take a chance, or a lot of them do, don't they? It's the club that doesn't seem to want to take the chance, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's all that matters, isn't it? It's what the club decide that's what matters.
Let's have a look. Keith Parr, what do you reckon? Hammers has a clause in his contract along release. Will it be this great shame for returning fans not to have seen him in the royal blue? However, I'm not a fan of Richard Keys, but he said a month ago that he thought he was taking the mickey, and it would be no surprise if he was. Shouldn't we be bigger than the club? Shouldn't be bigger than the club, whoever you are, and doing a Carlo should come as no surprise, unfortunately. Keith, some players are bigger than clubs, whether you like it or not. Some people can dictate what they want.
3 weeks ago, one of the first things we spoke about that wasn't to do with managers is, well, that's Ames gone. He won't stay now. Carlo's gone.
Of course,
he'll move on.
We know he came to Everton because of Carlo.
So we're 3 weeks down the line and there's rumours he might leave. It's the least surprising thing. It's like telling me this couch is blue.
This is what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. Why don't football fans accept reality as it is and not as they want it to be? James Rodriguez is at Everton because of Carlo Ancelotti. Nothing else. So we will have all kinds of clauses in his contract that if Carlo leaves, he can go, blah, blah, blah. It's life. Just accept it for what it is. And let's keep going.
One of the stories that Mendes wants to move him to Milan. And he wants to move Rafael here. Then fair play. All day with that. If he doesn't want to be here, let him go. I'd love him to stay for another year. Love to see him in the flesh. But if he doesn't want to be here, move him and get a young lad who's got loads of talent.
You can replace James Rodriguez with Rafael Lau, then do it all day. All day. As much as I like James Rodriguez and he's a superstar and he's this and he's that and he is very effective when he's on the pitch, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's an absolute no. If forget the Carlo situation, if Carlo was still here and someone said, right, James is going to play, what did he play last season, 25?
Yeah.
So if James is going to play 22 games next season because he's a year older, more injuries, you've got the chance now to replace him with a fantastic, young, athletic, hungry, quick, good goal-scoring striker at AC Milan who's doing really well. Would you take it? Most people would go, well, yeah, because you've got to look forward. You've got to look for the future.
Got to. Tony B says if we sold Keane, and I know they want a loan, and Alan and Ray say 50 million, does this not technically allow us to spend 100 million through FFP rules? I'm sure I've heard John Blaine explaining this in the past. What it means is if we sold Moise Keane and Alan for 50 million, we could put that full amount into the financial year, even if it's paid in instalments, so that can go on. So there's 50 million quid back. Then we can buy players, for argument's sake, worth 100 million. Because maybe not 100, maybe like 80, because then and pay for those in instalments. Yeah. So you might get 4 players who were all worth, 4 players who were worth £25 million each. 25 million, and you go, we'll give you 4 instalments of 5 million for each player, and those clubs take it, which means you're actually only paying out 20 million. So even though you've brought in £100 million worth of talent, you're only actually paying out £20 million, and that's how the balance sheet works. Yes, you have to do that again next summer, but it gives you that breathing space. So that's the way around it. So technically, yes, that would mean that. So you can just basically bank that money, even if it is only in instalments, just for a balance sheet, which is literally all it is. Yeah. So that's one way out to do it.
Yeah. Shrikar Candela says on the super chat, thanks mate. Rafa plays slow tempo, which suits our squad. Potter's faster tempo would need a big overhaul. Overhaul is necessary, but short term, Rafa may be better. Maybe.
He may be he's less of a risk, isn't he? Let's be honest. But I still would rather.
You would need to invest a lot.
I'd rather go with Potter.
Chris says, I wouldn't mind Rafa because of his prior success, but the potential division within our fan base over a long-term basis, I think, could cause issues. I'd agree that Duncan should be given a shot. Granted, he's not managed the club full-time, let alone in the Premier League, but the games he played, I felt like he gave us an identity in the way we played. Jamie Carragher's analysis of the game in charge shows this very effective, and also agree with what he said about the style Everton should play when we said we should follow something similar to Atletico Madrid. Yeah.
Toffee Blues in. All right, lads, saying, all right, fellas, Benitez would be a disaster appointment for us. There are better options, more fans will get behind. We short ourselves.
I don't think it would be a disaster. I do think it would be very, very divisive, but I don't think it would be a disaster.
I actually think he'd get Everton to Europe. That's what Benitez. I do. Honestly, I do.
When we talk about divisiveness, though, and diversity, we're at a point now as a club that we really didn't need more diversity. We needed a manager that was going to come in and galvan and get everybody singing off the same hymn sheet. And because let's be honest, at the moment you've got Evertonians who haven't got a manager to have a relationship with. We haven't got a good relationship with this group of players, arguably the least likeable group of players in my lifetime. We're now struggling to have a relationship with the board because a lot of people are now sort of turning and
shouldn't have a relationship with the board though, Cam. But you shouldn't have to have a relationship with the board yet, really.
You should trust them.
We shouldn't even.
I don't think you'd ever
shouldn't even have to shouldn't even have to think about it, mate.
Yeah.
Should you? But it's a football club to kick a leather thing round the pitch. I don't even know what's leather anymore.
Polish that.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you shouldn't need. But you're right about the fans. But one thing I would say is, What any new manager has got on his side is he comes in, he'll kick off first game of the season with fans in the ground to create that relationship. We haven't got a relationship with this team because we've watched them for the last 12 months playing football in empty grounds. Right, where you haven't been able to build those relationships, and they haven't been able to build those relationships with us either. It's a two-way thing, and I do believe that any manager is going to get a boost from being there with them and having to be face to face with them. Because it's dead easy putting stuff on Twitter and social media about people you don't like. It's not necessarily the same when you come face to face with them. Or you go to the ground and you've got a fella next to you on the left and a fella on the right who doesn't agree with you. Start shouting your mouth off then. It can become a little bit... We've all been there. We've all seen what happens at Goodison Park. You know, I'm in the Gladys Street. I've seen what happens when people disagree with each other. Stewards normally get involved. Because we're all so passionate. So, and that, I'm not saying that for one manager in particular. I'm just saying for anyone. I've seen you know, a lot of different stuff just between fans. So the relationships will be built, hopefully, on the fact that we're back in the ground, and that will aid, I think, any manager, because the relief of being back in the ground and there'll be this thing when we first go to the game of the novelty factor, and we'll all be back on it, and we'll all want to make Goodison a fantastic place to be and all the rest of it. How long that lasts, I don't know, but they'll have that on their side. The overriding factor, even if it is Benitez, will be, well, I just want to watch Everton play at Goodison Park. Forget him. What's the point? Any negative that you bring into the ground is just not going to help the team.
It's a good point, actually, because I was just going to say, obviously, there's a lot that's been made over the last week or two about the reception he got when he come into Chelsea, and I think I was watching Rory, and he said he remembers the first game and there was boos, the toxicity was mad, and it's a good point because you sort of look at it now and think, okay, let's say Benitez comes in tomorrow, Friday, whatever, Saturday, then we sort of have a couple of days where it's a bit, it's not going to work, push it to the side, bring in 4 or 5 players that we go, it's dead exciting. That first game at Goodison, whether it's the Southampton game or a couple of games after, where hopefully we're all back in as a full crowd, or certainly as a majority crowd, it is going to be more focused on we're all back at Goodison watching Everton, and the sort of, I just can't see everyone being back and the first thing they're thinking going, right, let's have a go with this manager because we don't like him. It'll be, well, hang on, we haven't been here for that long as a majority, so let's just let our feelings be known about Everton.
Don't forget, we've all been away from the stadium as a collective for 15, 16 months.
Be 18 months by the time
18 months, right? We haven't felt like we can influence anything, so we felt powerless. And it feels like, we said it before, a Netflix programme, and things are going on, and we've got no influence over the board. We haven't been able to...
We'd be cancelled after the first season if we were a Netflix programme.
We haven't been able to influence what's gone on the pitch. We're all frustrated, and yet, you're right, you sit down and you say, I went to Wolves, I was lucky enough to go to Wolves game. 6,000, 6,500. It was boss being back at the match. The crowd, like, we got shouting more louder than when there's 40,000, because they were screaming for everything, because they thought, obviously, the relief to
3 days after the Sheffield United game.
I know, 3 days after a horrific
everyone was
display,
going, I can't really bother going.
They got in, and it was like, we can influence this, and we influenced the win. The players were running. It was more tackles than they'd made. They'd ran further than they had done all season, or certainly for months. So when there's 40,000 and it's bouncing, because Goodison will, day one, Sonny, Rafa Loud jokes out, and there's a few other boss players on the show, Moussa Diaby, you know, them kind of...
Messi.
All of a sudden, you're excited to be back in. The fella comes out, but you've seen a fella coming out for all the pre-season friendlies with the Everton stuff on, and he's give interviews, and by now, you're sitting there going, I don't like him, I'm not going to back him, but I back them. A lot of people will be, he's the manager, get behind him, what can we do? Some will be waiting for him to start losing games so they can go after him. I understand that as well, because that's human nature with people. If it's Rafa Benitez, I think there was a poll out with Nuno Espirito Santo, 71% of Evertonians were against it. So it's, you know, Rafa Benitez, I think, was 80%. That people were against it. So there will be people who, you'll get now it'd be interesting to see, do you want Nuno or do you want Rafa? It'd probably be heavily in Nuno's favour, but it just shows you how things have turned. But
Gary Ward says, how many managers are willing to go somewhere with a potential successor as popular as Dunk looking over their shoulder? It's an interesting one. There's always that thing, isn't there, of someone waiting in the wings. I don't think Duncan's quite there yet, because I don't think the club have got that kind of faith on him. Blue Peter says, if you're going to give it to Duncan, then I'd give him a 12-month contract and reassess next year, sort of an audition. He's not going to get us relegated, contrary to what people say. And Lewis Watt says, a week ago I was massively against Rafa due to the possible toxic atmosphere it would cause. Now, 3 weeks later, I'm all for just appointing Rafa if he's the man for Mashiri. Let's get on with it and get a manager on and some signings in and look forward to a new season. There is a case of that as well, isn't there? If he is the right man and they pick him, just get it done.
Get it done, yeah.
Get it done.
And surely for him, if he's there, surely he'd be saying, like, you know, what guarantees are you giving to me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What about money?
He'll have his own demands, won't he, as any manager?
Stuff, can I spend this?
That's what Nuno did. All the stuff about Nuno's talks cooling or falling to bits with Everton and Crystal Palace was because of his demands. I want to bring this player in, I want to bring this member of staff in.
My thing isn't over the Liverpool stuff. It's really not. My thing is the attacking side of the game. I want to see younger players brought to. But again, if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. Carlo didn't play anyone, did he?
Gone to Real Madrid to bring youth in, apparently, according to them. It's I'm more the long-term, short-term situation. I hate this, and we've done it with players for years, and maybe it's the case with Rafa Benitez is short-term solutions to long-term problems. And I just can't get behind it whatsoever. It frustrates me so much, especially when you're spending tens, hundreds of millions of pounds on players or managers that you know within 18 months are going to be rendered complete and utter useless. Like, we're not going to make any money from whatsoever. And I know it's all people had a laugh last season with, sell on FC, this, that and the other. But look where we are. We're at a point now where, we can say, we only spent 40 million on Alan and Decore, but that's 40 million we're probably not going to make back. Imagine we'd have spent 30 on Hammers. And, you know, I know we spent nothing on Hammers, but he's getting paid a lot of money. So we can laugh and joke about sell on FC and this, that and the other, but the simple sort of base of business is you spend low and you make a lot of money. Look at companies like Apple, who probably pay about £3.50 for a MacBook to be made, and they sell it for $2,500. And that's how they've become successful.
Ball one of you. Christian says, following from what I've just said about the relationship with fans, if we were in the ground last season and the fans were singing Carlo's name and giving him the love and support as our manager, would he have stayed? No. Because of social media, there was a lot of negatives to him, and when Madrid come calling, he said, F this, I'm off. It would have been interesting to know what would have happened, or do you think he would have got off? As without doubt, social media does play a part. Christian, I think he would have just got off.
Yeah,
I think Real Madrid was an offer that he couldn't turn down.
He only had 4 games with a full crowd.
It's Real Madrid. No, he did, and maybe you might be absolutely right, mate. That thing might have come into his thinking, you know. But the thing I think would have been in his thinking is, I haven't really started this project, so there's actually nothing much to give up on. I think when managers have started a process and brought loads of players in, and you can see tangible evidence that they're going somewhere, that's when it's harder to leave, because you're thinking, I can't go away from this. This is all working. It's great. At the moment, you are right. The world's a weird place, and I think he's got off before it's actually started. Because of COVID. If we hadn't had COVID and we were 18 months down the line and the project was really going somewhere, then he might have gone, nah, this is too good to give up on this. But I think where we are, it's like anything, isn't it? You know, if you start anything, it's better to stop when you've been doing it for a few weeks. And, you know, if you take on a new I don't know, a new skill or new sport or a new hobby, and after a few weeks you're like, this isn't for me. It's better to do it that than put loads of hours in and then suddenly discover it. So maybe a bit of both, but I don't think he ever would have turned Real Madrid down. I really don't.
It's not like he's gone to Wolves or Palace or Brighton, is it? He's gone to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And we can't compete with Real Madrid.
Mitchell?
Yeah. Mitchell Bolton on the super chat says, can't see Benitez having players bought for him. He moans when he buys his own players, never mind taking the bullet for brands. Nice one for the super chat, Mitchell. All I'd say is...
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, he
said beggars can't be choosers.
No,
beggars
can't be choosers. Or they can't choose who's going to eat them.
To get him the Everton job, he's going to have to give it up, isn't he? He's going to have to go, well, all right, I'll go then, and I will work within that structure. Because otherwise, there's no point, because that structure, Marcel Brands has just signed a new 3-year deal, so that's the structure.
Absolutely.
But the structure's already proven before that there is flexibility. We saw that last summer. Carlo got to bring in a couple of players that he wanted. What seems to happen at Everton is the manager and Marcel Brands probably have conversations, and if they agree on certain things work, then they'll do it. Doesn't always have to be through Marcel Brands' structure as such. There will be a structure, but if the manager's signings fit within the parameters of maybe having 2 or 3 older and more experienced players in the squad, then you go with that. Yeah. It's about weeding out the older ones and getting rid of them and bringing in youth, so there is a nice balance. You can't always have a team of 23-year-olds. You've got to have that little bit of nous in the squad. Every squad needs it. Every squad, the best squads need it. Look at Man City's. You know, they've got older players mixed with the younger. Then what you've got to do is then you've got to replace them, and then your younger players suddenly get a little bit older with experience, and they become the older heads. You know, you forget with like someone like Man City. Kevin De Bruyne's now 29, 30. So he's one of the more experienced. Yeah. You forget that because he's come through. And then the older players ahead of him move out. You get rid of an Aguero, and then, do you know what I mean? Yeah, Fernandinho, you know, that's what you need to do. And Everton at a point now where we have to go and get a lot of younger players in now. But I'm sure someone like any manager would be looking at a squad going, but if I want to be here long term, I need long term players with me that I can bring in, that I can help mould, you know, and I can move forward with. Because if you bring in too many old players, you know you're gonna have to do that every summer or every other summer, and it starts cutting down your lifespan as a manager. If you got young players, you can go, God, some of these are gonna be here for 5-6 years, and if I do this right, I can be with them for 5 or 6 years, and that's the way to do it. You know, that is the way to do it, as Mr. Thingo said, punch.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah. It does seem like there isn't a structure, but there has to be a structure with it all. There has to be a structure with the players. There has to be a thought process and a plan, but at the moment I don't think, it doesn't seem like there is, other than trying to get the biggest name. I'd have done it differently, but...
Well, that's why they've got to come out and explain and say, look, and this is the fella we've chosen. This is why we've chosen him. This is where we want to be. The plan hasn't changed, or the plan has changed. This is where we're going to be in 12 months, where we want to be, where we want to be in the future. It takes 5 minutes for Marcel Brands to sit in front of a camera and explain the club's decision and say, listen, just bear with us. Like we've just said then, we play Southampton on the opening game of the season, and there's 40,000 Evertonians at Goodison Park. Rafa Benitez isn't going to be the focal point of everyone going, oh my God, it's Rafa Benitez. Most people will just wake up that morning and go, do you know what? It could be Mr. Bean or Mr. Miyagi managing us today. I don't care. I'm going back to Goodison Park. I'm going the game. I'm going to watch Everton Football Club for the first time for a lot of people in 18 months. For a lot of people who went to games during COVID, yeah. Brilliant. It was great to get back in the stadium, but it's not what it is when Goodison's bouncing 40,000
I would worry if it was Mr. Miyagi, though.
Wax on, wax off.
Well, I mean, he's dead for about 10 years, so that would be, be an issue.
The fictional character, not the actor he played. He did wax on and
wax off. Listen, there still could be a surprise up the sleeve, who knows? It's just that it looks very much like it'll be Rafael Benitez, but
let's just get the ground.
Until Everton have named the manager, it could be someone else.
Ned, have you got, are they the latest odds there?
Yeah.
Well, and then don't just say yeah.
Put them up, mate. Let's have a look at the latest odds as we finish.
That's like the cue for the... I mean, he hasn't changed.
Go. Rafa Benitez 1-3 on to be the next Everton manager. Nuno Santo Espirito still hanging in there 9-2. Paulo Fonseca looked like he was going to Spurs, but didn't. 12-1. Graham Potter 14-1, and
Bobby
Roberto Martinez 14-1. So they're the latest odds.
Changed much, have they, in the last 24 hours for the first time, which is very interesting.
Because we've had the first period of 24 hours in the last 3 weeks where there's not really been anything.
Nothing.
That's what I was saying earlier, though. When you do get that little lull of silence, something happening.
Something's, yeah.
Get it done, announce it. If it's Rafa Benitez, face it and go,
Get it
this
on
is
the
the music.
side.
This is who we're bringing
the
in. 'Cause he's the
stadium.
right man.
Mr. Miyagi.
Get it
Here's
on big.
Here's
We'll have a
Marcel
flag
Brands
like we
telling
did
you
for
why.
like we did for
Martinez.
Carlo.
We had a
No,
we had a big thing for
the
Carlo.
big banner
Yeah.
for Carlo.
We had a big thing for Martinez as well, didn't we?
Yeah,
On the side of
Martinez
it.
out.
On the side of the park end. So
Gonna be interesting. Let's see.
Here we go.
Let's see. Hopefully by the time we're live tomorrow, Everton will have, well, we'll know a bit more. Everton will have announced Mr. Miyagi or Mr. Boone, you know. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed
I'd give it to Paul
Subscribe if you haven't.
shout.
Don't forget to give the Footy Show a subscribe. About general footy, get over there and check that out. Join us on Patreon as well if you want more videos. Thanks for watching. We'll be live at 5 as well later.
We
See you
will.
later.
Watch you a long time.
Oh, watch you longer. Take it easy. Bye.